So what I'm going to do is sort of just pick up on what Faisal said and just talk about my experience with publishing and writing and I get there. So my training originally is it was in science, and I was a physician, so I went to medical school, did the whole thing, specialized and so on. And then the 2008 election happened, and that was just a really, really interesting thing because, you know, you had
Sorry.
the soundtrack. So you had the, you know, there was race involved there. There was gender. There was Clinton, Obama. There was an old man, war hero, John McCain. It's all of these really, really interesting things happening together, and I was fascinated by it. I've always been into U.S. politics since I was a kid, even though I'm not American. And the first article I actually wrote that got published was about Sarah Palin, and it was called "Patriarchy's New Poster Woman." So it was. And I sent it. HuffPost was pretty young at that time. It was like about 3 years old, and I sent it to them. I used to send it to everybody. I used to send like whatever I wrote all over the place, and I had my own blog, and it just picked up. And that's, I think, one of the most important things to know about publishing and writing is that it's involuntary. Like if you're just gonna do it, if you really, really need to say something, it's just gonna happen somehow. You know, it just comes out of you. And if you want to get it out there, you have to be prepared for the idea of getting 99 rejections, sometimes hundreds of rejections before you get one accepted. So it could happen the first time, could happen the 10th time. And what happens is that once you get into one outlet, for instance, if you get published on the Huffington Post, you get published everywhere else, when you pitch the next piece to somewhere else, then you can actually put that down. Even if you've published one thing on HuffPost, you can send it to somewhere else and say that, well, you know, I am a contributor to Huffington Post. And once you do that, then that gives you an in. It automatically sifts you away from all the other ones, and helps you move up. So there are a lot of things we can go into about how to promote the stuff you write, you know, how to use social media, how to do all that, and we'll get into that in a bit. But the most important thing, you can pay people to get you followers, you can do all kinds of things. The only thing that's going to matter at the end is the content, is what you write. And that is, I think, the most important thing. And when you look around, and my thing has always been, like I told you, it's involuntary. The only time it happens for me is if I look around, something's... Okay, so how many of you read the news, you see all the conversations going on online, on TV, everywhere, and there's something you feel everyone's missing. It's like, why is nobody talking about this? And you go to, like, you talk to your friends about it, you annoy everybody, you're like, well, no, there's this angle everybody's missing. Whenever you feel like that, that's what you should write, and that's what you should send. So I usually never, if there's something, like if everybody's writing about how, you know, Donald Trump is an asshole, for instance. That's not something I'm going to write about. I'm like, there's a lot of people doing that already. Why would I write it? But if there's something interesting that comes up, like for instance, okay, Donald Trump has said this one thing that's resonating with a lot of people, and he has legitimate points, but here's why that's not going to work. It's something different that you don't feel anybody else is covering. Then that, I think, is how you decide, you know, what the content's going to be. It's something universal, something you feel that nobody else is talking about. So that's when it comes to articles and blogs. So I'll explain now, just really quickly, what the process was for book publishing, because I get a lot of questions about this, a lot of emails about how to, you know, get an agent or get a book deal, how to go about it. And the first thing I would say, and is just generally, is that people often have a goal that I want to publish a book. They don't know what it's going to be about. It should be the other way around. You know, you'd come with it, you're like, this is something I feel strongly about. Maybe I can write a book about it. So go about it the other way. Don't think about writing a book. Just think about, like, you know, what is something you feel strongly about that you really want to express. And then you can decide whether you're going to make it a blog or a book and everything. You can plan it that way. Goals are intimidating. When you say, I want to get a book published, I like this idea, I want to write a book about it, publish it. It's very scary. The way to do it is to break it down into a plan. So this is the process. If you have a topic, so you have something you want to write about that is a fiction novel, for instance, you have to write the entire manuscript and then you send it to agents. But here I'm going to focus on nonfiction because I think that's what probably most people would be interested in here. The first step to writing a nonfiction book is not to write the book. Don't write it. The way that it works with nonfiction publishing is you write a book proposal. So the very first thing you need to do, there's a lot of book proposals online. If you want to see mine that we successfully sold, I can send that to you too as well. And it's essentially a business plan. It has different parts to it. It starts with an overview of the topic, a little bit of background about what you're going to write about. Then you have a chapter by chapter outline of what each chapter is going to cover, maybe like a page or something on each. A list of, you do your research, find out what other books are out there that are on the same topic, how your book is similar, especially if the book's successful. You want to say draw similarities, but also how it's different. So you have to strike that balance, and then importantly, why you're the right person to write it. Anything like from your professional designation to some personal experience, or whatever the book is about, depending on it, what makes you a really, really good candidate to write it and why you think people will read it. So it's basically like a business plan, and once you have the book proposal, then and you're ready to go and you feel like it's in a good place, then you start querying literary agents. So what happens with publishers is they get manuscripts, they get book proposals all the time, but they can never really sift the really good ones from the bad ones. Most of them are going to be rejected, so they want somebody else to do that for them, and this is where the literary agent comes in. So depending on what kind of book you have, there are different agencies and different agents available. You look for them. My personal agent that I have his name is Don Fair. He was an agent for Paul Berman. He was also an agent for Christopher Hitchens. He was an agent for Niall Ferguson. A lot of both, Democrats, Republicans, right-leaning, left-leaning, all kinds of people. So he had a very sort of broad list of people he worked with. And what you do is you send what is called a query letter. So you email them. You give them a really quick, the best summary you can of what your book is about and why you think it should be published. Fair was my first choice because he's with Trident Media, actually right here in New York. He wrote back to me. He said he's interested in seeing the proposal. I sent him the proposal. He said it needs a little bit of work. I worked with him on it. We refined it. And then after that, the agent sells it to the publisher. Publishers use agents as a way to filter the higher quality stuff from stuff they're not interested in. So what he did with my book is he auctioned it. He took the proposal, sent it to about 13, 14 different publishers, and asked them to get back to him on a certain date. That is a sort of a high risk, high reward type thing, in the sense that people have limited time to respond, so some of them will just not take the risk and say no. On the other hand, the people who would be interested in it will probably be in a hurry to say yes. So if you have, the ideal situation is you have multiple publishers who want to publish you, and that way you can negotiate the advance. Comes to the advance, if that's another important reason to have a literary agent. What the agent will do is they take 15% of everything you earn, pretty much, from that project. And it's in their interest to get you the best advance possible. An advance is not just money. It's actually a symbol of faith. Sorry, I don't know about word choice in this conference, but that the publisher has in your project. So an advance is typically the kind of royalties that they would expect back from the sales of the book that they'd project in the first 6 months that the book comes out. So if you get a higher advance, that's probably the one to go with, not just for monetary reasons, but because that means that the publisher has more confidence that your book is going to sell, and it means that they're probably going to put more efforts into selling your book and getting it out there. So that's a good place to go. I had two publishers who accepted. One was a large publisher who I eventually went with, which is St. Martin's Press. It's one of they call it the Big Five publishers, along with Simon Schuster and Random House, or Penguin Random House, and then Hachette and HarperCollins. And then there's St. Martin's Press and Macmillan. So I went with them because it gives you better sort of shelf space, more distribution, and they were also doing a worldwide release, so I thought that was a much better option for me. And that's basically how it goes, but once you've signed the deal and everything's good, it's obviously not over. Now you have to write the book, right? And that is when the real work starts, and that's something that I can't give you any advice on. It's something that you'll have to buy. If you've gotten to the point where you've gotten the deal and you've sold your proposal well, chances are, you're going to do a really good job writing the book. And it's a fantastic experience. It's really good to get your ideas, to sort of hone them, organize them, sit down and actually do the research, and finish it. And going through the process with the publisher is just a complete blast. It's a lot of fun. And I think that's it. The final thing I'm going to say is social media. I would say don't pay too much attention to it. There's a lot of Twitter. I would use it as a broadcasting tool. If I have something that I want to promote, whether it's an idea or an article or something I find interesting, I'll put it out there. There are a lot of people who see the responses, and people are vicious on YouTube and Twitter and all these things, and they'll reply, and you can just get pulled into I've seen people get pulled into all of the responses, and just know that the responses that you're getting and the reactions, especially the aggressive people who don't like what you're doing, always look at them as a symptom of your work, that it's generating that response. There's going to be a lot of positives, a lot of negatives, and don't look at it as an attack on you. The only reason, if you're in a position where you're getting all these attacks from both sides, and you're getting a lot of praise and attacks and everything like that, and it's a sign that you're probably doing something right, especially with the way things are so polarized right now. So just be careful with the social media. There's a whole world outside Facebook and Twitter and all these things, and I would just say focus on the big ideas. When I came here, I grew up in like Libya, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, all these countries, and when I came here, I promised myself that I would talk about the big ideas about science, skepticism, reason, the toxicity of faith, just the civil rights, and all of these issues. And you come here and suddenly people are into all of these minute issues, that should we say this word or not, what is the meaning of meaning, and it's very easy to get caught up in those things, and it's just best to avoid that and just remember why you did it in the first place. So if you have any questions, by all means, just email me, or ask me.
Just a question, is translation part of the deal included?
It can be, it may not be, and that's something that I kind of left it up to my agent, because I had no idea. So your agent is mainly, that is probably the most important part of the publishing process, is getting the right agent, because they're going to take a commission off of the sales that you get. They will negotiate, they'll make sure that they keep all the rights, the rights that you need. If you want to, for instance, with audiobooks and with translations, you can actually keep a lot more of that money and bypass the publisher. Because the book goes, the publisher, the book's big, suddenly you're going to have translation offers. Why should you let the publisher do that? That's something you can do yourself, right? So instead of paying them for it. So that's something that good agents are always aware of. Warning signs: an agent asks you for money to read the book, your proposal, asks for fees, asks for any kind of, you got to pay me this, I've got this fees, I got those fees. Dump that agent. That's not a good agent. Like when I talked to Don, he told me, he's like, I'm not going to ask you for a penny until I've sold your book, because that's how he's going to do. He's going to make his 15%, 20% for overseas, and that's a sign of a good professional agent who's confident and knows how to get the job done. The only thing where I would say that it's probably a good investment to spend a little bit is if you want your proposal edited before it goes to the publisher. So just you can hire an editor, pay them some money, and it's a good thing to invest in that, so that your book proposal is in a good place. Obviously, working closely with your agent, it's in a good place to send. So if they ask you for that, that is fine, but no other fees. Just don't pay them. Yeah.
Would you recommend getting an agent even if you are directly approached by a publisher?
Yes. Yeah, because you want to negotiate a deal, right? So I'll give you my story. In 2013, there's this one article I wrote that kind of went, so to speak, viral. Okay, so it went all over the place, and I was approached by a publisher directly in Toronto. So it was a Canadian publisher, and they said, and at that time I wasn't even thinking of writing a book. So they said that, "Are you interested in writing a book?" And I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, I'd love to write a book. They're like, well, why don't you send us a proposal? And at that time, I didn't know what a proposal was, had no idea. I asked people I knew, like I asked Sam Harris about it actually. He was very, very helpful. He actually has a great blog post on publishing as well that you can see on his site. But